You've got some nerve, Daniel. Matthew's voice boomed across the open floor, echoing off the glass walls like a war horn. Half the office flinched. The other half peeked over their monitors to catch the show. Daniel didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, controller in hand, thumbs flying as his gaming character executed a perfect flashbang combo. "Hold on," he murmured, eyes locked on the screen. "I'm about to pentakill their legal department." Matthew stormed forward, tie flapping like a battle flag. "You're playing video games during core hours. You think this is an arcade?" Daniel sighed, paused the game, and slowly turned his chair toward Matthew. "No. Arcades have better snacks." Gasps. A muffled chuckle from the IT pod. Someone whispered, "Dead man walking." "Get HR down here." Matthew barked into his headset. "Now. I want him terminated. Immediate dismissal. Gaming, insubordination, you name it." HR Director Karen appeared moments later, clipboard in hand and vengeance in her eyes. "Daniel Cole," she snapped. "You are being investigated for severe misconduct." The office doors burst open with a bang. Everyone turned. Standing in the entrance was a silver-haired man in an Armani jacket and sunglasses worth more than Karen's salary. It was him. "Mr. Grayson?" Karen stammered. "From Center Corp?" Daniel stood up, casually setting down his controller. "Hey, buddy. You're early." Grayson strode past Matthew without a glance, straight to Daniel, and pulled him into a hug. "You magnificent bastard," he said with a laugh. "I just signed the final term sheet. We've got a 10-year contract, exclusive. Your system works like magic." Karen blinked. "System?" "Daniel built it," Grayson said. "The whole back end. From scratch. We tried hiring someone to replicate it. Took 3 firms and 2 burnouts. No one could match it." Matthew's mouth opened, closed, then opened again like a broken stapler. He's been slacking off all quarter. There's no record of him doing anything." Grayson waved him off. "He doesn't log hours. He logs miracles." "And you were firing him?" He turned back to Daniel. "Let's get out of here. I brought a bottle of Glenfiddich Grand Cru. You've earned it." As Daniel walked past Matthew, he patted the man's shoulder. "Hey, if you need the password to the server, it's Matthew is a loser 123. Case sensitive." Laughter exploded across the office like fireworks. Even Karen snorted. They stepped out together, and the glass doors slowly closed behind them. Inside, Matthew stood frozen, red-faced, surrounded by a room full of silent, wide-eyed employees. Outside, Daniel was already opening the limo door. "Glenfiddich, huh," he said, sliding in. Grayson grinned. "You deserve the best." Daniel leaned back in the plush seat, cracked his neck, and smirked. "Nah. I just like watching them squirm." Most people at Ridgewell and Company had their own rhythm, daily stand-ups, status emails, deliverables, KPIs. Daniel Cole, however, had a different routine. He arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. Not 8:59. Not 9:01. At 9 o'clock, he walked through the sliding doors in his gray hoodie, coffee in one hand, a protein bar he'd never finish in the other. He passed reception like a ghost no one wanted to claim credit for hiring. By 9:05, he was already reclined in his gaming chair, imported, custom-fitted, and most certainly not HR approved. By 9:10, he was booting up a game on his second monitor, and by 9:30, he had somehow consumed his coffee and begun snoring. Most assumed he was just part of the office scenery. Someone must have hired him during a merger. Maybe a diversity quota for antisocial behavior. Maybe blackmail. He never attended morning meetings. When forced to, he'd show up halfway through, sit on the edge of the table, and scroll through his phone like he was ordering ramen instead of absorbing Q3 data. And yet, strangely, nothing in the company ever broke. The server stayed up, the VPN never failed, client dashboards worked smoother than anything the IT team patched together. Things just worked. As if some divine force kept patching bugs from the shadows. Nancy was one of the few who noticed. She'd been watching for months. She was quiet, head always down in the finance corner, carefully tracking anomalies in the system logs. Each time a crisis seemed about to erupt, a database crash, a corrupted pipeline, a missing invoice, it mysteriously fixed itself. Without tickets. Without trace. Once, she walked past Daniel's desk during one of his naps. His screen showed an SSH terminal with strings of clean code running in the background. The keyboard had been tapped 6 seconds before she arrived. He'd written a patch in his sleep. She didn't say anything. She never did. But from that day forward, she started adding Daniel to her mental map of real power in the company. Then there was Lisa. Lisa Weston was Ridgewell's marketing director, in title only. Her actual job? CEO's daughter. She wasn't subtle about it. High heels that echoed like gunshots on marble floors. Eyeliner so sharp it could cut paper. Dresses that cost more than Daniel's entire wardrobe and came in pristine packaging, because she had a stylist for the office. She was used to being the center of attention. Used to heads turning when she entered. Until the day she stormed into the bullpen, yelling about the proposal software crashing. "Does anyone here know how to fix literally anything?" she'd screamed. Only one person didn't flinch, Daniel. He slid his headset off, glanced at her, yawned, then turned back to his screen. "Maybe don't click every pop-up like it's free candy." Lisa marched over and dropped her laptop in front of him. "Fix it." Daniel tapped a few keys. 1, 2, 3 lines of code. Enter. Closed the lid. Handed it back. Done. She blinked. Wait. That's it? There was a hidden redirect to a phishing JS. I killed it and rerouted the scripts. Also uninstalled the 12 toolbars you apparently downloaded. Lisa stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "You're kind of a jerk." He shrugged. "You're welcome." From that moment on, Lisa decided Daniel was hers. She sent lunch to his desk daily. Pink bento boxes with food shaped like animals. One came with a handwritten note, "Even heroes need fuel." Red heart, L. He returned it the next day with a sticky note that read, "Tasted like betrayal." Lisa laughed like she'd just been proposed to. Matthew, meanwhile, was plotting murder. Director of Corporate Strategy, Matthew Gold was a man with an angle for everything, and a smile for no one. He'd spent the last 5 years trying to climb to COO, and Daniel was in his way. Not directly, of course. Daniel had no formal title beyond Systems Support Specialist. But somehow, every time Matthew tried to make a move, present a merger, pitch a new vendor, restructure a division, Daniel undercut it with a well-timed bug fix or offhand remark in front of the board that casually exposed flaws in Matthew's logic. Once, during a major presentation to investors, Matthew's slides refused to load. The screen showed one line in giant red font. Matthew forgot to test in presentation mode. Again. Daniel was in the back row, spinning in his chair, sipping bubble tea. Matthew knew. He knew. But proving it? Impossible. HR never had anything on Daniel. The CEO didn't even know what Daniel did, but somehow, whenever he walked by, he gave Daniel a respectful nod, like saluting a man who'd saved his dog. And now Lisa had a crush on him. Unbelievable, Matthew muttered, watching from the upper balcony as Lisa dropped off another smoothie at Daniel's desk. The clown has the princess. Daniel sipped the smoothie, winced, and muttered, "Too much kale, not enough dignity." Lisa was smiling. "He's so sarcastic." "I love that." Nancy, across the room, shook her head. "This place is insane." But she kept watching Daniel. Something told her chaos was only just beginning. Monday morning began with a thunderclap, only it wasn't from the weather. It was the sound of the CEO's office door slamming open. Matthew exited first, his tie knotted to perfection, his smirk weaponized. Behind him, Lisa trailed with an iPad in one hand and a protein smoothie in the other, her heels making intentional noise down the corridor. Her hair was curled to accidental perfection, her blouse ironed within an inch of its existence. She looked ready for a board meeting, or a proposal. Daniel, meanwhile, was reclined in his chair, a bag of chips balanced precariously on his chest, playing a rhythm game with military precision. His eyes barely flicked toward the glass walls of the executive wing. "Daniel Cole," Matthew said loudly, pausing near the break room for maximum audience. "Please report to the 17th floor conference room immediately. Bring your badge." Gasps. Whispers. Lisa dropped her smoothie. Nancy's typing froze mid-keystroke. Daniel didn't pause the game. "Can I finish my combo?" Matthew's jaw flexed. "No. Now." Daniel sighed, saved his game, and stood up with a pop of his neck. He didn't look worried. If anything, he looked mildly annoyed that his nap schedule was being interrupted. Upstairs, the CEO, Mr. Weston, sat stone-faced at the head of the long mahogany table. The windows behind him framed the city skyline, but the storm brewing in the room outshone anything outside. "Daniel," Weston said, fingers steepled. "We've received a very troubling leak." Matthew stood beside the CEO, tablet in hand. "We found traces of internal documents from Daniel's system being sent to an unsecured IP in Taiwan." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You sure it wasn't your vacation photos again?" Matthew ignored him. "It's all in the report. Client contracts, marketing blueprints, even source code segments." The CEO looked pained. "Daniel, I've always valued your unconventional contributions. But this can't be ignored." Daniel looked around the room. "You think I'd leak my own code? I named every file final actually final rel version _Cole. The comments alone are in memes." Matthew slid the tablet across the table. "Your machine sent them. That's undeniable." Daniel didn't touch it. "So? You ever heard of spoofing? Malware? You've got interns running cryptobots on company Wi-Fi." Weston sighed. "I'm placing you on paid suspension pending investigation." Lisa stood up. "Wait." Matthew cut in. "That's fair." Daniel nodded once, stood slowly, and reached into his pocket. He pulled out his ID badge and tossed it on the table. "Don't forget to change the system password. It's currently Matthew smells like failure 99. All caps on the last word." With that, he turned and walked out. 30 minutes later, chaos hit the office. Lisa posted a photo. Daniel was asleep on a bean bag, hoodie pulled over his eyes, a piece of cake in one hand and a signed HR form in the other. Caption. "Ring he said yes, while unconscious, but love is love. Hashtag engaged hashtag power couple hashtag VPN wifey." The office exploded. Nancy choked on her coffee. The front desk was flooded with gossip. Slack channels overflowed. Marketing made memes. Someone started a poll on how long it would take Daniel to sue. Daniel, however, did not comment. He stayed home. Until Nancy knocked on his apartment door. He opened it wearing socks that said "Don't talk to me" and a hoodie that hadn't been washed since Q2. "I brought something," she said, holding up a flash drive. He stepped aside. "No questions." Inside, she pulled up transaction records. "I traced the source of the Taiwan leak. It was rerouted through 3 internal proxies. One of them matches Matthew's login." Daniel didn't blink. She continued, "And this," she pulled up another file, "shows unauthorized fund transfers from marketing to a shell account. Signed by Matthew. Co-signed by someone named L. Weston. Daniel stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds. Then he picked up his phone and opened his contacts. He texted one word. Noted. The next morning, the company was buzzing with rumors. Lisa showed up in a white blazer and matching heels, glowing like a bride. "Where's Daniel?" she chirped to reception. "Suspended," said the receptionist flatly. "Unsuspend him," Lisa said sweetly. "I'm pretty sure spouses get immunity." In the finance corner, Nancy quietly installed a tracker on Matthew's terminal. No one saw. No one questioned her. By lunch, the CEO had called for a full internal audit, on Lisa's recommendation. "Just to clear Daniel's name," she said innocently. Matthew turned pale. "Are you joking?" "He's the leak." Lisa smiled. "You're the one who said we should modernize workflows." "I'm just being agile." That afternoon, Daniel's face appeared in the breakroom TV. Not in person, just in a paused frame of a security camera screenshot, shown as part of a company-wide email titled, "Do not engage, suspended employee." Lisa posted a reply. "Already engaged." Red heart. Daniel, still quiet. Still dangerous. But somewhere in the background, logs were being pulled. Access keys were being changed. Subroutines were activating. Nancy knew it. She watched the clock tick past 3 p.m. and muttered under her breath, "It's starting." Daniel lay belly up on his couch, a bowl of stale popcorn balancing precariously on his chest, fingers flying across the controller as his game avatar delivered a spinning back kick to a demonic corporate overlord. "Combo bonus," the game announced in a British accent. He grunted. "Tell me something I don't know." From the outside, it looked like Daniel had embraced suspension with both arms and a microwavable burrito. DoorDash receipts littered the floor like battle medals. His laptop sat unopened on the coffee table, screen dark, stickers peeling. A blanket was wrapped around him like a toga of sloth. But deeper inside the apartment, behind a bookshelf that slid aside with the press of a key, was something entirely different. Rows of monitors glowed in an eerie neon blue. Terminal windows streamed code like digital rainfall. One monitor tracked IP packets by the millisecond. Another displayed a 3D map of Ridgewell's internal network. Every node, every server cluster, every failover point, it was all lit up, breathing. Daniel sat there every night, quiet, hoodie up, eyes narrowed, not gaming. Not relaxing. Watching. He wasn't suspended. He was preparing. Doomsday mode had been coded 3 years ago, back when he first suspected the board would one day turn on him. It was a set of protocols designed to execute silently, efficiently, and with poetic vengeance. Every backup plan had a backup. Every failsafe had a failsafe's failsafe. All cloaked beneath the harmless label, Q1_reorg_final, 2_don't delete.xlsx. He knew Matthew was sloppy. And Lisa? Lisa was chaotic, but she wasn't stupid. She was dangerous in a different way. The way bubble wrap is dangerous, pop one square, and suddenly you're 5 hours into a psychological trap. Flashbacks came to him in quiet moments. First year of college, server room flooded because some idiot spilled Red Bull on a power strip. He fixed it in 3 hours with a borrowed soldering kit and leftover ramen money. Second year, Ridgewell's systems were so outdated that the CEO's email still ran on IMAP. Daniel redesigned their entire infrastructure for $50 and a campus Wi-Fi login. Senior year, Weston had hired him full-time out of pure panic when Daniel hacked the payroll system during his internship, just to prove it could be done. Now? He was fired. Framed. And Lisa had sent a gift basket. Nancy showed up at exactly 7:02 p.m. He opened the door with a sock on one foot and a bottle of soy sauce in his hand. "You bring snacks?" She didn't answer. She walked past him, scanned the living room, then tilted her head toward the hidden monitor room. "I knew it," she muttered. He shrugged. "Didn't say you didn't. I brought you this." She handed over a fresh flash drive. Direct access logs from Matthew's PC. He's been opening shell companies and routing fake invoices. Daniel plugged it into the hub. "Give me 10 seconds. Nancy looked around. Her eyes landed on the bulletin board above the main station. Strings connected printed screenshots, emails, transaction codes, a photo of Matthew blinking mid-sentence. In the center was a sticky note with 2 words. Get wrecked. You've been building this since the first day, she said quietly. Since before that, he replied. The logs decrypted. The screen glowed. Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. He used Lisa's signature. Nancy blinked. Wait, forged? No, he clicked play on a video file. Lisa's voice filled the room. Just tell me where to sign, I don't care what it's for. I hate looking at spreadsheets. Matthew can deal with it. Nancy exhaled. So he used her. Smart. Daniel leaned back. Dumb. He left a digital trail wide enough to drive a yacht through. Just then, the doorbell rang. Nancy retreated to the kitchen. Daniel opened the door to find Lisa standing there, holding a bridal magazine. Daniel, she beamed. We need to pick out floral themes. Daddy said if you pick the white roses, you get 30% of the company. Isn't that romantic? Daniel stared at her. You came to my apartment with a contract and a magazine. Also snacks. She held up a glittery paper bag. Heart-shaped macarons. Daniel stepped aside just enough for her to see Nancy in the background. Nancy's already here. Lisa's eyes narrowed. What's she doing here? Helping me not go to jail. Lisa blinked. Ugh, so dramatic. You know I never believed you leaked anything, right? I mean, you're too lazy to even forward emails. I don't forward trash, he replied. I just delete it. Lisa walked past him and flopped dramatically onto the couch. Listen. Let's just skip the drama, get married, and co-chair the board. You get your job back. I get a hot husband with tech support. Daniel raised an eyebrow. I'd rather marry a toaster. Then I'll buy you a smart one and name it Lisa 2.0, she purred. Nancy coughed. Lisa turned. Oh, you're still here. Nancy smiled tightly. Not for long. Lisa returned to flipping pages. What do you think of beach weddings? Daddy says I can shut down a private island. Daniel walked back to his monitors, ignoring both of them. Nancy followed him. She lowered her voice. Are you going to move now? He didn't look up. Not yet. I want them to be comfortable. Overconfident. Let them believe I'm sulking in a beanbag while they gut the system. Nancy's eyes narrowed. You're going to burn it all. Only the parts that deserve it, he said. And maybe a few extra for fun. Behind them, Lisa was holding up 2 wedding dress sketches. Strapless or backless? Daniel typed faster. The first cracks didn't show until Wednesday morning. A single client, Techvera Solutions, emailed Ridgewell's front office with a panicked subject line. Urgent, your system corrupted our CRM, executives locked out. Within 2 hours, 3 more emails poured in from other major accounts. Client data had gone haywire. Systems were crashing. Passwords were reset without permission. Files labeled Q3 client list _final had suddenly transformed into screens filled with nothing but ASCII art of a middle finger. By noon, Ridgewell's legal team had barricaded themselves in the boardroom. By 1 p.m., the entire company knew someone had leaked proprietary files to a rival, Stera Holdings. But those files hadn't just been transferred. They'd detonated. Because they weren't real. They were bait. In the chaos, Lisa sprinted down the hall, heels pounding. She barged into her father's office, eyes wide. Dad. The files. They were. I know, Weston snapped, slamming his palm on the desk. And guess who accessed the export keys? Matthew. In the video surveillance now looping on every executive monitor, Matthew was seen plugging in a USB labeled marketing_V2_ full access. His face lit up with glee. He copied the files. Emailed them to an external address. That was 2 days ago. Now? Stara Holdings had gone offline. Their backend was fried. The files Matthew had sold them weren't client gold, they were digital grenades. Booby-trapped with recursive scripts that scrambled entire file trees, executed lockout codes, and left behind only one last payload. A video of Daniel, sipping tea. Caption: You really trusted a file from someone named marketing_v2_final_actually final.docs? Inside Ridgewell, the board went ballistic. Get him back, Weston ordered. Now. But sir, Matthew stammered, pale and drenched in cold sweat. He's still suspended. You're still employed? Weston shot back. At 2 p.m., the lobby doors slid open. Daniel walked in, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his shoebox. Inside the box, a baby raccoon, wearing a juice box hat. The receptionist blinked. Security? Daniel waved. Relax. Rescued him from a construction dumpster. His name's Chaos. Lisa ran to him, clutching her phone and a white folder. Daniel, thank God you're here. He sidestepped. Is that another engagement form? She beamed. Just a tiny one. Legal said it's binding if it has at least one party's signature. Daniel held up the shoebox. Can Chaos sign it? Lisa gasped. Would that count? The elevator doors opened before Daniel could answer. The boardroom was waiting. He stepped inside, calmly placed the raccoon on the table, and sat down. Weston stood. Daniel. What the hell did you do? Daniel raised a brow. You mean save your client roster? Or your reputation? Or your data integrity? Start with the first. I leaked fake files to a monitored dummy server using an account Matthew had already compromised. I let him take the bait. Matthew sprang from his chair. You set me up. Daniel sipped from a juice box Chaos had apparently left behind. You framed me. I framed you back. Circle of corporate life. The board murmured. Daniel reached into his hoodie and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Also. Lisa and I? Not married. Lisa frowned. Yes, we are. No, we're not. You forged the HR consent form. The signature on mine is from a conference badge I left in the break room. Lisa blinked. Okay, but it was romantic forging. Nancy stepped forward from the corner, holding up the HR compliance handbook like a sword. It's also illegal. Lisa pouted. Fine. Then what if I actually marry you this time? Daniel deadpanned. I'd still rather marry the raccoon. Chaos let out a squeak. Matthew tried one last time. You can't prove I sold anything to a competitor. Daniel gestured lazily to the screen. A CCTV video played, Matthew shaking hands with Stara Holdings VP in a parking garage. The USB was visible. Nancy added, also the account they wired the money to? The last 3 digits were 420. Subtle. Lisa giggled. Matthew collapsed into his seat. This is a witch hunt. Daniel leaned forward. Nah. This is your performance review. Weston looked at Daniel. We need you back. Officially. Daniel stood. I'm willing. But I have a few conditions. Name them. 1. Lisa stays 20 feet away from me at all times. Lisa, rude. 2. Chaos gets a security badge. The raccoon squeaked again. And 3. Daniel smiled slowly. I want Matthew's office. You want my? Daniel cut him off. To turn it into a gaming lounge. Matthew stood, face red. This company is falling apart. Daniel reached into his pocket and dropped a flash drive on the table. On that drive is a fully rebuilt client infrastructure, secure, scalable, self-healing. Built it over the weekend. For fun. The board erupted in applause. Matthew tried to speak. Weston raised a hand. You're done. Lisa leaned over to Daniel. Do I at least get visitation rights? Daniel looked at Chaos. The raccoon hissed. Denied, he said. The conference room was silent, so silent you could hear the filtered air conditioning stutter. Every board member was seated. Every executive, tense. At the head of the table sat Weston, face tight, fingers steepled like he was praying the company wouldn't implode in the next 60 minutes. To his left sat Matthew, jaw locked, tie tightened so aggressively it looked like it was trying to strangle him before karma got the chance. To his right? An empty chair. Everyone knew whose it was. Where the hell is he? Weston muttered. He confirmed he'd be here, said the legal counsel, flipping through her notes. Subject line was, sure, why not? That's when the door opened. Daniel strolled in slowly, holding a matcha latte in one hand and Chaos the raccoon in the other, now wearing a tiny Ridgewell Company lanyard. Daniel's hoodie read suspended, not stupid across the chest. He slid into the chair and put the raccoon on the table. Chaos curled into a little ball atop a presentation remote. Shall we? Daniel asked. Matthew stood immediately. I motioned for Daniel Cole's termination. Whispers erupted. Legal began frantically flipping through clauses. He has compromised security protocols, damaged client trust, and publicly mocked our brand. Objection, Daniel said casually. Matthew glared. You don't have that power. Daniel tilted his head. Don't I? He pressed a button on the remote. The lights dimmed. The projector flickered on. First, it played audio. Matthew's voice filled the room. If you get me Daniel's project source files, I'll cut you in, $200,000. I don't care what it takes. We freeze him out. Frame him. Bury him. Gasps echoed like a shockwave. Someone dropped a pen. Weston's face turned the color of day-old coffee. That could be fake, Matthew barked. Deepfakes are rampant these days. Daniel raised a hand. I thought you'd say that. The screen changed to a timestamped video. Security footage. There was Matthew, sneaking into the restricted data center at 2:42 a.m. the night Daniel was suspended. Hood up. USB in hand. He looked like a kid stealing from the cookie jar, if the cookies were highly confidential proprietary architecture. In the video, he plugged the USB into the mainframe and grinned. Then, he froze. The monitor in front of him turned red. A single phrase appeared. Congratulations. You played yourself. Back in the boardroom, Daniel took a sip of his latte. You broke into the server room, he said, but you accessed a decoy system. I mirrored everything. The logs, the files, even the background apps. The moment you inserted that drive, it triggered a full-chain backup and screen capture. Matthew stared, mute. Daniel smiled. You didn't hack the system. You starred in an infomercial for why you shouldn't be trusted with scissors. Nancy, sitting in the corner, slow-clapped. The board murmured louder now, dozens of executives looking between Daniel and Matthew like a tennis match with nuclear consequences. Matthew exploded. You set me up. Daniel shrugged. You gave me the USB stick. I just added a little flair. Weston turned to legal. Can we press charges? Immediately. That was when the doors burst open a second time. Lisa Weston entered in a floor-length wedding gown. Lace. Diamonds. Veil. The whole 9 yards. She held a sheet cake in one hand and a priest's collar in the other. Surprise, she called, eyes shining. I brought cake. And a priest. Let's make this board meeting a wedding. The priest behind her looked alarmed. I was promised refreshments. Daniel didn't even turn to her. He pulled out a single sheet of paper and placed it in front of the board. Before we go any further, he said, I should probably mention something important. Everyone paused. Daniel looked at Weston. You don't own the company anymore. Weston blinked. Excuse me? Daniel pulled out his phone and tapped a few keys. The projector screen updated. Company ownership structure appeared, freshly updated with digital signatures. One name sat above all. Eleanor Weston. Lisa's mother. Daniel leaned forward. Your ex-wife bought the controlling shares 3 days ago. She signed them over to me this morning. 51% ownership. The room erupted. Weston stood up so fast his chair clattered to the floor. Eleanor did what? Lisa dropped the cake. Wait. Mom did this? Chaos squeaked. Nancy covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Daniel turned to Lisa. Guess that makes me your boss, not your fiancé. Lisa looked like her brain had blue-screened. Matthew, seizing a desperate moment, lunged across the table toward the ownership docs. This is fake. It's fraud. You've all lost your minds. Security tackled him mid-leap. The papers fluttered through the air like ironic confetti as he was pinned to the floor. I'll sue. I'll leak everything. Daniel stood. Walked over. Took off his ID badge. And slapped it onto Matthew's chest. You're fired. Security dragged Matthew out screaming. Lisa sat back into a chair like someone had unplugged her emotions. Nancy stood up, stepped beside Daniel, and whispered, now that was satisfying. Daniel nodded once. It's not over. Weston snapped out of his stupor. Then what is this? Daniel adjusted Chaos's lanyard. This is the part where I take full control. I'm not here for revenge anymore. I'm here to fix what's broken. Nancy nodded. And what about her? She glanced at Lisa. Lisa perked up. I can help. I know branding. And wedding planning. And I'm cute. Daniel sighed. You can be my assistant. Lisa gasped. Like, executive assistant? Or, wife assistant? Don't push your luck. Chaos hissed. The following Monday, Daniel was formally appointed president of Ridgewell and Company. The announcement came with a gold-trimmed plaque, a bouquet from legal, and an HR onboarding email so long it crashed his inbox twice. He stared at the new title engraved on his badge, President Daniel Cole, and said aloud to no one in particular, this feels like a prank. Then he walked straight past the executive suite and into Matthew's old corner office. The first thing to go was the mahogany desk. Second, the leather chairs. Third, the portrait Matthew had commissioned of himself shaking hands with himself. By noon, the room looked completely different. The new centerpiece was a triple-monitor gaming setup with full surround sound, RGB lighting, and a soda fridge that hissed whenever opened. The smell of fresh instant ramen lingered in the air like incense. Chaos, now fitted with a tiny headset and security badge-level Ultra Admin, had claimed the beanbag in the corner. Nancy stood in the doorway, arms crossed. So this is what power looks like? This is what healing looks like, Daniel replied, loading up a raid lobby. Workplace trauma requires surround sound. Across the hall, Lisa wheeled in a marble-topped desk and parked it 2 feet from his. Absolutely not, Daniel said, not looking up. This is my office now too, Lisa declared. As your personal executive life manager. There is no such title. There is now. I made business cards. She flashed one. It sparkled. Daniel minimized the raid tab. Lisa, we're not married. You forged that form. You liked the lobster rolls, she shot back. That's not consent. Lisa spun dramatically in her chair. Fine. Then I'm here in a consulting capacity. For brand identity. And fiancé PR. Nancy stepped in, holding a tablet. Can we vote to exile her? I've tried, Daniel replied. She keeps finding her way back in. Like glitter. Lisa smiled sweetly. You say that like it's a bad thing. As chaos settled into a new kind of normal, Daniel made a few executive decisions. First, he appointed Nancy as CFO. Her first order of business was to freeze the accounts Matthew had routed offshore. Her second was to authorize Daniel's emotional compensation form, which he filed under accidental engagement trauma. Her third? Reassign Matthew. A photo was posted on the company-wide Slack the next day, Matthew, wrapped in 3 coats, standing outside a prefab building labeled Ridgewell North Data Ops, Arctic Tier. Behind him, a polar bear stared into the camera like it too wanted Matthew gone. Daniel captioned it. Reassigned. With love. Lisa replied with a gif of a penguin saluting. With company morale at an all-time high and quarterly reports exceeding expectations, Daniel made his 4th executive move. He called an emergency all-hands meeting. Everyone assembled, buzzing with curiosity. Daniel took the stage in sweatpants and a hoodie that said "I paused my game for this." Chaos clung to his shoulder like a furry executive assistant. He tapped the mic effective immediately. Ridgewell will be shutting down for a 3-week all-expenses-paid vacation. The room gasped. To where? Someone shouted. Anywhere, Daniel said. Company credit card. Max it out. I don't care. Just send Weston the receipts. From a beach in Fiji, Weston's phone buzzed 83 times in under a minute. The crowd roared. Employees hugged. IT burst into tears. The finance department began singing. Later that week, Daniel leaned back in his custom ergonomic chair, baby in one arm, Xbox controller in the other. Lisa had handed him the infant 10 minutes ago and declared it training. Training for what? He'd asked. For when you finally give in and marry me, she said, then disappeared in a puff of perfume and glitter. Nancy, passing by the office, raised an eyebrow at the scene. So now you're playing Call of Duty while holding an actual baby? It's realistic multitasking, Daniel replied. This level simulates corporate parenting. Chaos squeaked from the corner. The baby drooled. Daniel smirked. Being CEO isn't so bad, he said, if the Wi-Fi stays fast.